Phase 1. The hook. Visual. Grainy, Super -8 style footage. A child's hand draws a complex, spiral-eyed symbol in a dusty notebook. The image is overexposed, dreamlike. Soft, ambient synth music begins, slightly melancholic. Narrator. There is a particular kind of anxiety that has no name. It's not the fear of the future, but the suspicion that you are a stranger to your own past. It's the quiet dread that a crucial piece of who you are was misplaced somewhere in the fog of childhood, and that empty space has been defining you ever since. This isn't about forgetting your keys. This is the feeling of a phantom limb. A part of your own history that is gone, but still aches. We're going to call this the phantom limb of memory. And by the end of this video, you will understand why these memory gaps exist, how they can be weaponized against you, and most importantly, how to reclaim the narrative of your own life from the ghosts who try to write it for you. Phase 2. The problem. Visual. A montage of faded photographs from the 1970s and 80s. Children playing in a vacant lot, an empty classroom after school, a desolate suburban street at dusk. The images are slightly unsettling, as if something is wrong just outside the frame. Narrator. Have you ever looked at an old class photo, your eyes scanning the rows of smiling, unfamiliar children until they land on one face, and it's you? You know it's you, logically. The name is written underneath. But you feel no connection to that person. You don't remember their hopes, their fears, their secrets. Who were they? What did they do right after this picture was taken? The archive is empty. You feel this phantom limb most acutely in conversation. You're with an old friend, and they launch into a story. Remember that summer, they say, the one with the clubhouse in the woods? And that kid from the next town over, the one who told us he could bend spoons with his mind. They laugh, their memory vivid, a perfectly preserved film. But for you, there's only static. A black screen. Visual. A close-up on a face in a yearbook. The face is circled in red ink. The photo is old and creased. The narrator's voice becomes more intimate, more direct. Narrator. You smile and nod along, pretending to remember. But inside, a cold, quiet panic is blooming. It's more than just a forgotten story. It feels like a betrayal. Your own mind has edited you out of your own life. You are left with a profound and unnerving question. If a part of my past can be completely erased, what else is missing? What foundation is my present self actually built upon? This is more than an uncomfortable feeling. It is a critical vulnerability. The hidden cost of these memory gaps isn't just a loss of nostalgia. The cost is your sovereignty. Because if you do not own the story of your past, someone else can. Someone can step into that void you've left unguarded. They can plant a flag there. They can tell you who you were, what you did, what secrets you kept, what promises you broke. They can hand you a script of your own life, written in their ink, for their purposes. Your forgotten self becomes the perfect puppet. And you will not even feel the strings. Visual. A grainy shot of a hand reaching out from the shadows, offering a piece of candy to someone just off-screen. The mood is tense, conspiratorial. Narrator. The most dangerous person in the world is the one who remembers something about you that you have forgotten. Especially if they are lying. Phase 3. The solution. Visual. The screen cuts to a stark, black and white panel from a manga. A young boy, Kenji, stands in front of a crude symbol drawn on a wooden fence. The music shifts to a more investigative, mysterious tone. Narrator. To understand this weaponization of memory, we must turn to a story that is, at its core, a war over a forgotten afternoon. A sprawling, modern myth about a group of friends who find their childhood games of saving the world have become a terrifying reality. We need to talk about the man they called Friend. In Naoki Urasawa's epic, 20th Century Boys, a mysterious cult leader emerges, using symbols and prophecies taken directly from a game a group of boys invented in the summer of 1969. This leader, Friend, seems to be omniscient. He knows their deepest secrets, their childhood dreams. He perfectly executes the apocalyptic plans they scribbled in their Book of Prophecy. He rises to power, becomes a global messiah, and brings the world to its knees. And all the while, the heroes, the boys, now middle-aged men, are haunted by one question. Who is he? He must be one of them. But which one? Their memories of that time are a fog of nostalgia and shame. They cannot identify the enemy because they can no longer clearly identify themselves. Narrator. The story offers a profound psychological solution, a key to understanding the phantom limb of memory. Friend's power is not supernatural. It is surgical. He operates within the voids of his followers and his enemies' pasts. The core idea is this: our most powerful and dangerous personal narratives are forged in the forgotten crucibles of childhood. When we bury a memory out of shame, boredom, or inconvenience, it doesn't vanish. It metastasizes in the dark. The only way to disarm a threat like friend is to embark on a painful, systematic archaeological dig into your own forgotten history. You have to find the source code. This process rests on three foundational principles. Visual. The screen splits into three panels, each with a grainy, abstract visual. A clock ticking backward, a flickering television screen, a hand digging in the dirt. Narrator. Principle 1. The tyranny of the unexamined past. What we consciously choose to forget are subconscious archives with perfect, and often distorted, clarity. Think of the petty cruelties of the playground, the casual betrayals, the small, selfish acts. We dismiss them as childish things and lock them away. But they don't die. They become psychological pressure points, buried landmines in the terrain of our identity. Friend's entire strategy is based on knowing where the main characters buried their minds. He knows their moments of shame, their forgotten slights. He knows that the most powerful guilt is the guilt you can't quite remember the reason for. He doesn't create the weakness, he simply exploits the one that's been there, dormant, for 30 years. Narrator. Principle 2. The hijacking of symbols. Your childhood was a universe of potent symbols. A secret handshake. A drawing of a robot. The name of your secret base. A crude flag. These symbols were charged with immense personal meaning. They were your first attempt at creating a private language, a shared mythology. But what happens when the mythology is forgotten? The symbols are left abandoned, derelict. They become public domain. And when a symbol is detached from its original meaning, it can be filled with any new meaning someone chooses. Friend didn't invent a new symbol for his cult. He took theirs. He took the symbol of friendship, a doodle representing their childhood bond, and turned it into the 21st century swastika. He hijacked the emotional resonance of their past and weaponized it. Every time they saw that symbol, they were meant to feel not just fear of him, but a deep, confusing shame about themselves. He owned their history, so he owned their emotional response to the present. Visual. Kenji, the protagonist, looking determined. He's holding his guitar. He's older now, weathered. The scene is intercut with flashes of him as a boy. Narrator. Principle 3. The responsibility of remembrance. This leads to the final, crucial principle. The only defense against the hijacking of your past is the active, arduous work of remembering. The story of 20th century boys is not a detective story. It's a story about memory retrieval. Kenji's journey isn't just about stopping a villain. It's a desperate quest to remember. Who else was in the secret base? What did we do that summer? Who did we hurt? Who did we forget? He has to reconstruct his own past, piece by painful piece, to understand who he is fighting in the present. Remembrance, in this context, is not a passive act of nostalgia. It is an active, moral responsibility. To forget is to cede control. To remember is to reclaim it. Narrator. Here is a way to think about it. Your memory is a vast, old house. You live your daily life in a few, well-lit rooms on the ground floor, your job, your current relationships, your routines. They are familiar and comfortable. But there are other wings of this house. Entire floors you haven't visited in decades. The doors are locked. The hallways are dark. The furniture is draped in dust sheets. The air is still and cold. The danger is not that these rooms are empty. The danger is that someone else has found a key. They've been living in your forgotten spaces, quietly, for years. Rearranging the furniture. Reading your old diaries. And they are waiting for the right moment to step out of the shadows and claim the entire house as their own. Because, after all, you weren't using it. Phase 4. The application, visual. The screen goes dark for a moment. When the image returns, it's a first-person perspective. The viewer is holding a flickering flashlight, pointing it down a dark, dusty corridor. The music is subtle, just a low hum. Narrator. So, how do you take back your house? How do you walk into those dark rooms without becoming a ghost yourself? You can't force a memory. Trying to brute force your way into the past only creates false narratives and distorted images. The process is more subtle. It is not an interrogation. It is a work of psychological archaeology. You aren't looking for treasure. You are looking for artifacts that tell a story. Here are 4 practical steps. A guide to exploring the unlit corridors of your own history. Visual. The text, Step 1. The sensory trigger audit, appears on screen. The image is of a hand writing in a small notebook. The shot is shaky, handheld. Narrator. Step 1. Conduct a sensory trigger audit. For the next week, your task is to become a detective of the senses. Our most stubborn memories are not encoded in language, they are stored as sensory fragments. A smell. A taste. A melody. Carry a small notebook or use an app on your phone. Pay exquisite attention to the mundane triggers you encounter throughout the day. The smell of rain on hot asphalt. The taste of a cheap brand of bubblegum you see at a gas station. A half-forgotten song from a passing car. When you feel it, that flicker, that ghost of an emotion, a vague sense of déjà vu. Do not try to chase the memory down. That will only make it retreat. Instead, simply perform an audit. Write down the trigger and the feeling it produced. Nothing more. Entry 1. Smell of chlorine from the public pool. Feeling. A mix of excitement and dread. Entry 2. Sound of a bicycle bell. Feeling. Loneliness. Entry 3. Texture of a corduroy jacket in a store. Feeling. Safety. You are not writing a diary. You are mapping the secret entrances to your own house. You are finding the keys you thought were lost. Visual. An old telephone with a rotary dial sits on a table. A hand reaches for it. The text, Step 2, the archival interview, appears. Narrator. Step 2. Perform an archival interview. Your memory is not a single, authoritative text. It is a collection of drafts, with different editors. To get a fuller picture, you must consult other archives. Your task is to contact one person you were close to at a specific time in your past, but haven't spoken to in at least 10 years. An old friend from elementary school. A cousin you spent summers with. A former neighbor. The goal here is critical. You are not calling to catch up. This is a specific mission. Once you've moved past the initial pleasantries, ask them one carefully worded question. I'm doing a sort of personal history project. I was wondering, what's a story about me, or about us, from back then that you remember, but you think I've probably forgotten? Then, be silent, and listen. Do not correct them. Do not say, oh, I remember that now, even if you do. Do not argue about the details. Your memory is not the definitive one. Theirs isn't either. History is not the event itself, but the story we tell about the event. You are simply collecting another version of the text. You are listening for the echoes in rooms you can no longer access directly. Visual. A hand draws a simple map in a notebook. It's a map of a childhood neighborhood, with places like the broken fence and monster tree labeled. The text, Step 3, the Book of Prophecy exercise, appears. Narrator. Step 3. Write your Book of Prophecy. In 20th century boys, the Book of Prophecy was a record of the heroes' childhood fantasies of world destruction and heroism. It was a story they wrote that shaped their future. You must do the same, but in reverse. Take a new notebook. This is your personal Book of Prophecy. Using the data from your sensory audit and your archival interview, you will begin to write. But you are not writing down what you remember. You are writing down what you now suspect might have happened. You are giving narrative form to the ghosts. Write in the third person. There was a child who was afraid of the deep end of the pool. There was a promise made by the broken fence that was never kept. There was a secret that was told to only one person, and that person moved away. This is not an act of creating false memories. It is an act of reclaiming the narrative. By giving these vague feelings and fragmented stories a home on the page, written by your own hand, you take the pen away from any potential friend who would seek to write your history for you. You are telling the ghosts that this is your house, and you will be the one to tell its stories. Visual. A collection of old, small objects are laid out on a table. A bottle cap, a faded trading card, a single die, a strange-looking key. The text, Step 4, the symbolic reconciliation, appears. Narrator. Step 4, the symbolic reconciliation. As you perform these exercises, certain objects, places, or phrases will begin to emerge from the fog. A broken action figure. A specific tree. A nickname. These are your personal symbols of friendship. They are artifacts charged with forgotten emotional energy. Your final task is to reconcile with them. Pick one symbol that has recurred. Lay it out in front of you, either physically or in your mind. And ask it 2 questions. First, what did you mean to me then? Allow the answer to come without judgment. Maybe it meant shame, or pride, or fear, or love. Second, what can you mean to me now? This is the most crucial step. You cannot change the past event, but you can change the meaning the symbol carries into your present. If it was a symbol of a childhood failure, can it be reframed as a symbol of a lesson in resilience? If it represented a broken friendship, can it become a symbol of your capacity for loyalty, even when it wasn't returned? This is not about positive thinking. This is about symbolic alchemy. You are taking the lead of a painful or forgotten memory and transmuting it into the gold of self-knowledge. You are updating the software of your own past. Phase 5. The proof. Visual. A montage of the climax of 20th century boys. The heroes, now old, finally confronting the truth. The visuals are epic, but the focus is on their faces, the look of dawning, painful realization. Narrator. Does this process actually work? Or is it just a sentimental journey? In the world of 20th century boys, this is precisely how the mystery of friend is ultimately solved. It isn't a brilliant deduction. It isn't a final, bloody battle that reveals his identity. It is a collective act of memory. The heroes finally corner friend, not by outsmarting him, but by remembering him. They had to piece together the events of a single, forgotten afternoon in 1971. An afternoon where, in a moment of casual, childish cruelty, they wronged another boy. A boy they literally forgot existed. A memory they had all subconsciously agreed to bury because it reflected poorly on their image of themselves as heroes. The moment they speak his name, the moment they take responsibility for that forgotten act, friend's immense psychological power evaporates. He is no longer a god, no longer an omniscient demon. He is just a man, trapped in the amber of a childhood memory they all shared, and he alone was left to nurture in the dark. Their memory was his prison, and also his throne. By remembering, they set him, and themselves, free. Visual. Archival footage of a psychological experiment. A brain scan. Then, a close-up on the cover of Dr. Bessel van der Kolk's book, The Body Keeps the Score. Narrator. This fictional narrative perfectly mirrors a profound truth in modern neuroscience and psychology. We now understand that the mind doesn't always store trauma as a coherent story. Dr. Bessel van der Kolk, in his landmark book The Body Keeps the Score, explains that severe psychological stress can fragment memory. The explicit, narrative part of the brain shuts down, but the implicit, sensory part keeps recording. The trauma is stored not as a story, but as a collection of raw data. A knot in the stomach, a specific smell, a sense of dread. Healing, van der Kolk argues, is not about forgetting. It is about patiently and safely reassembling those sensory fragments back into a narrative. It's about teaching the body that the danger has passed by giving the memory a beginning, a middle, and most importantly, an end. The bodies of Kenji and his friends kept the score of their forgotten cruelty. Friend was the living embodiment of that score. Visual. A single, empty swing sways back and forth in a deserted playground at twilight. The shot is held for a long time. Narrator. The logic, therefore, is inescapable. The greatest threat to your autonomy is not the entity that wants to control your future. It is the one who understands how to colonize your past. By leaving entire wings of your own house dark and unvisited, you create a vacuum. And a vacuum, in both physics and psychology, abhors being empty. It will always be filled. Reclaiming your memory is not an act of nostalgia. It is a fundamental act of psychological self-defense in a world that constantly seeks to tell you who you are. Phase 6. The call to action. Visual. The narrator's office, a room filled with files, maps, and old technology. The lighting is low, casting long shadows. It feels like a conspirator's bunker. Narrator. We all have a friend in our past. Not a person, necessarily, but a moment. A forgotten act of kindness or cruelty. A choice we made that we decided to bury. A symbol whose meaning we've allowed to be hijacked by time and neglect. So, I ask you, what forgotten symbol from your childhood still holds power over you today? A place, an object, a song, a name. Share it in the comments below. Reading through them is like exploring a collective, forgotten history. Visual. The hello, yesterday channel logo fades in. It's stylized to look like a stamp on a classified document. Narrator. If you believe that the past is a living entity, and that the blueprints for our present are hidden in its archives, then you have found your fellow explorers. Subscribe to Hello, Yesterday, and let's keep digging through the static. Visual. A split screen. On one side, the current video. On the other, a thumbnail for another video appears. The thumbnail is dark and mysterious, titled, The Akihabara Anomaly and the Myth of Collective Amnesia. Narrator. The weaponization of a single, lost memory is a terrifying prospect. But what happens when an entire society agrees to forget? To understand how this works on a national scale, you need to watch our investigation into a phenomenon that haunts the neon-lit streets of Tokyo to this day. Click the video on your screen now to explore the Akihabara Anomaly and the Myth of Collective Amnesia. The signal is fading. We'll meet again in another yesterday.